Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
We're going to be reviewing the Scrusher Rover next on Now Let's Review.
Isn't it Cyrusher?
Oh, is it?
All right, so this is the Cyrusher Rover.
I've been calling it the Crusher, but yeah, you're right. It's Cyrusher. Yes. Okay. It's a Cyrusher Rover. I think if I had to pick 3 words to describe it, it'd be heavy, powerful, fun.
Yeah, I would say it's go anywhere fun. If I can only do 3 words. So let's get into the details of this. This is a 750 watt hub motor.
But it does peak at 1400 watts.
So they claim torque sensing,
Love it.
which is great.
Rear and front suspension.
Yep. 4-inch fat tire with 26-inch wheels, so very big, very heavy. 87.3 pounds.
This is one of the heaviest bikes that we've reviewed up until this point. So I was looking for a bike to replace my Adventure bike that we go on all the time on Now Adventure, our other channel. And the one thing I was looking for was this, rear suspension. I wanted everything that bike had, plus this. And so we've taken this out on a really long adventure, and this has now become my adventure bike for now.
So that's high praise. I just want to point that out. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between hardtail and what this bike is, which is dual suspension.
Yeah, so on the Adventure, you only get the front suspension. The rear is soaking up this right here is soaking up every single bump. And you probably remember on a lot of our adventures, I would stand when I was about to hit some rocky stretches.
And you'd complain, and you'd say, oh, do we have to keep going on all these bumpy trails? And then anytime we were on a smooth trail, you were very happy. But now, with the Cyrusher Rover, you've been very happy because you do have this rear suspension. So let's talk a little bit about it. It's a very complicated, toggly sort of system.
It's so stiff that on roads, I didn't notice it. And so I thought, well, this isn't gonna do anything. And then we took it off-road, and I noticed that I wasn't standing much. In fact, I stopped standing at all because it actually does its job. When you're hitting real rocky, potholy terrain, it absorbs the bumps. And that's exactly what I wanted. Now, it is stiff, and I suppose it depends on your weight. I'm 170 pounds, so it depends. If you're lighter, it's gonna be stiffer for you. If you're heavier, and this bike, by the way, can hold up to 350 pound payload. So you can be a heavy rider. And I see a lot of large men, especially, riding bikes like this, and I think this is why they're built for that.
Yes, and they're very, very fun. I think that a lot of times people think the only time you get to ride a bike is if you're Lance Armstrong, fit as a fiddle. And I think that that's overblown. I think that that's lame, and I think that bikes like this are the perfect answer to the problem of, well, how do I get fit as a fiddle? And I would say by riding a torque sensing e-bike that can, both accommodate your weight and also just take care of all the bumps, all the everything. You can really ride this bike everywhere. That's why I say you can ride it everywhere, because it looks like a bike, which means that you can take it on a bike trail and you're not gonna get yelled at by some Karen, but you can also take it off-road and do some pretty wild stuff with it, and the suspension, the tires, everything is built to handle it.
Let's get into the stats. All right, so you can get it in 3 colors. We've got it in black, but it also comes in this blue and in this green.
It has a claimed 62 miles of range.
I want to stop you there.
Okay.
I think you could get that range if you were doing nothing but pedaling, but I just want to give my experience riding it. I was riding it almost entirely on the 3-speed, so there's 0, which is you do all the pedaling, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And on our trip, I was in 3 almost the entire time.
Interesting.
Which means at 3, I was getting a range of more like 40 miles top.
Okay, but I think that that's actually a huge advantage over the Aventon, because the Aventon, even in Eco, that's what you usually rode in, was Eco, and there was no level below it.
Right.
So this bike would actually allow you to get more exercise if you wanted, because you could tune that down to 2 or 1, and it would still be helping you out a little bit, and obviously on the hills you can just zip it up. But
yeah, I mean, because in 1 on this bike, it's so heavy that it doesn't feel like it's doing that much for you. So just be aware of that.
So I mean, it's a con, but it's also positive that that 3 felt comfortable for you, because now there's 4 and 5 and also 2 and 1.
Exactly. Like when we were taking some of those big hills, I would throw it into 5 and I could keep right up with you going up the hill.
And these were serious hills.
Yeah, and let me just tell you, as a guy who's in his mid-50s, being able to handle something like that, which normally only a Lance Armstrong, big-thighed guy could do, it feels really great.
I think most people, even Lance Armstrong, would have trouble on that hill.
True. All right, so the battery right here is contained within the frame, which is nice because it doesn't look like an e-bike with the old style where they would attach it to the frame. But how big is the battery?
It is 52 volts and it has 811 watt-hours.
That's kind of right in the sweet spot, which is probably why I like this bike. Anything 1 kilowatt-hour or over is like moped overkill to me. Anything below like 500 watt-hours is too tiny. So 800 is like kind of the sweet spot.
It's really well proportioned for this bike. Because you have the fat tire, because it's so heavy, it's a little bit less efficient if we're talking about efficiencies with e-bikes. And so having a battery of about that size, I think is right in the sweet spot. I know that there's other e-bikes and they're like 150 miles of range. When are you gonna do that? Have you ever ridden a bike for more than 20 miles? On this, you will ride it for more than 20. You're gonna maybe do 30, maybe 40, and then I think you're gonna wanna be done for the day. So I think that this is really well sized. It means keeps the cost down by not going too high and also keeps the weight down, although it's heavy.
What I like about Cyrusher is that they make dirt bikes as well. So they make big, heavy bikes, and so they kind of know what they're doing. A lot of bike companies, especially from China nowadays, kind of throw a bike together. This one is not thrown together. This one has style, and it really feels like it's gonna last.
Last point about the battery, it's UL listed.
That's amazing. It takes a lot of extra hoops to go through and money to do that. So getting a UL listed battery means you can feel a little more confident when it's sitting in your house or garage or basement that it's not gonna explode.
Yes. So the Cyrusher Rover comes equipped with torque sensing, which means that basically as you pedal, the harder you push, the more torque you're exerting, and it will detect that torque and give you more power on the hub motor.
Love it.
I love it too. It's not the best torque sensing in the world, the best, experience. We felt some very high-end e-bikes where you get like mid-motor drives and all sorts of stuff that make it just feel completely seamless. I would say that this is a really nice balance between cost and performance. It means that you're actually able to pedal the bike. This is not one of those moped e-bikes where you're just gonna use the throttle and you're never gonna pedal it. Luckily, you can pedal, you can also throttle. I think it's a wonderful combo, especially for the price. Mwah, perfect. Very happy with the torque sensing in that regard.
I'm very happy that it has hydraulic brakes. When you get a bike this heavy, you need some good brakes. And these are 180 millimeter rotors, front and rear, with hydraulics. And I just felt great the entire time, whether we were going down hills. I mean, I went down some really steep hills, no problems. All right, let's talk about the handlebar.
Okay.
So we'll start over here with the kind of chintzy thumb throttle on the left.
Yeah, I honestly, with this bike, you're probably not going to use the thumb throttle aside from like just getting up to speed or through intersections. Maybe up some hills, you're going to just have it pinned. But luckily with the torque sensing, the throttle doesn't really come into play that much. So I think it's fair that they can chintz out on the thumb throttle.
Next, we go to the controls, which are nice. It's just a flat little pad here with these little indent buttons. It took me a little while to get used to it, but once I did, it was no problem at all.
And I like that it's visible. A lot of the older control panels, it was
It's like black on black.
black rubber. And so it's like, if you don't see those indentations, you have no idea what these are. Here it is nice and visible, and they even have a dedicated headlight button.
Yeah, dedicated headlight button, so nice, because I don't like pressing the power button to get my headlight to turn on, because I feel like I'm gonna freak out and shut off the bike or something.
Well, and it's always like, do I double tap the power button? Do I double tap the plus button? Do I hold the plus button? With this, everything's very simple and easy to understand.
Yeah. Next, onto the LCD screen. They kept it nice and small, and they tucked it in right here, so it doesn't look too e-bikey. Everything was very visible. The only downside is when you have the headlight on, which I like to have on all the time. Then it does dim. I wish that was changeable. I wish that you could change some setting, because then you could see it better in the daylight, but it's great. I could see everything I needed to see, and it has all the features that you need in a screen, and they kept it small.
Let's go on to the Shimano shifter. This is your bog standard Shimano shifter. They're very reliable. I don't think we've ever really had one crap out on us.
Yeah, the 7-speed is totally bog standard. I got a couple skips. Occasionally you're in one gear and it skips to the other gear. I think that just needs a little bit of tweaking on the setup on the rear. But yeah, everything was like smooth and easy to use. I will say the grips are a little, they're rubber and got the little spiky grips, and so they're very grippy, but they're not super comfortable to the hand. So I don't know if I'm gonna start wearing gloves.
It's definitely more for like when you're going off-roading,
Right.
And if that handle slipped out of your hand, you'd be in big trouble. So I think it's nice that they kept the strong grips, but yeah, if you're like on a bike trail and you're just kind of hanging out, the whole handlebars are basically a little too aggressive, but it's nice to be able to do like off-roading.
Now, when we look at the handlebars, there is some tilt available here, right here, but the distance off of the fork is determined by this. And it depends. It's all, what you like. I would have liked it to come back a little bit so I didn't have to be so forward, but that's something I could adjust later. I could replace this piece if I need to.
And that is something to think about whenever you're buying an e-bike. A lot of the e-bikes are made for the most extreme case. So for example, with this e-bike, again, off-roading, gotta, be leaned over because you gotta distribute the weight properly and all that stuff. If you're gonna be like on a bike path, you can look into getting handlebars that just come way back and are nice and relaxed. And I don't think anyone's gonna say anything because it's like, it's your bike.
Adjustable seat post here, which I'm in the lowest for this bike, so I'm kind of, I think, stretching the size a little bit. But if you're taller, so I'm 5'9" and I keep it low, but it really depends on your style. It used to be that you had to keep your leg fully extended on the down crank. You don't need that with an e-bike anymore, in my opinion. And so I go for comfort and I go for stoppability. When I stop, I want to be able to get my foot on the ground really quickly.
And nice and planted. Exactly. I don't like being up on my tippy toes when I come to a stop. You see this all the time with normal cyclists. They do need to have a high seat in order to get the full power with their legs. And then when they come to a stop, they fall over.
Right.
I've seen it happen where they like come to a stop and then they weren't like ready and then they just topple over. Having the seat nice and low, which you can do on an e-bike, so nice.
With the Aventon, I had more of an open frame, and I was a little worried about this bar, but it does come down at a quick enough angle that
You're
everything
safe.
I need to stay safe stays safe. So that's good to know. It doesn't come with fenders, and that's something I'm probably going to add because after our first ride I got a little dirty, and on a wet day you're going to get dirtier. The other thing I do miss and I would get as an accessory would be a rear rack, because if you're going any place and you want to be able to tie down your laptop or your bag, that's where you should do it. So those are the accessories I'm going to add to this.
Definitely. I would probably go for a more comfortable seat, totally taste dependent, but with this being an e-bike, it can be a heck of a lot more relaxed than normal bikes. And so while the bike seat was designed for heavy pedaling, the e-bike seat, I think, should accommodate your butt.
I mean, it is a wide seat.
It is.
And it does have a lot of nice features. They shaved this off the front, which is really smart, and they gave some airflow right here, which is really smart. So it's nice. I think the only thing is it's a tad firm.
Yes. I'm just saying, in terms of all the upgrades that you can do to an e-bike, the seat is like one of the easiest and probably the biggest impact on overall comfort. And you should be looking at seats because we've looked at some that are just humongous and they're very, very comfortable.
Thing is, I would go to a bike shop if you could, because if you order them online, you have no idea, other than dimensions, what it's going to feel like on your butt until you sit on it.
Oh, I disagree. Bike shops do not have seats that are bigger than this because they are bike shops. And if you're like, I want a seat that's more comfortable than that, then they're going to be like, why?
Interesting. Yeah.
I really do think you should be looking for the biggest, widest seat possible if that's what you're into. And you will know what you want. I think go for comfort over everything else, because that just means you can add more range to the bike.
That's true. That's the one thing that after about 20 miles, I will do a lot of standing.
Yes.
And trying to stretch there. Yeah. And as far as safety goes, a couple nice features here. The one I really like the most is on the rear. These lights are really bright, and they're not just focused to the rear of the bike. Everyone, like I would say about 60 degrees behind you, can see those lights. So when you're braking or when you get your headlights on, you are very visible. Also, the headlight is really bright. Really nice features to have. And I would always make sure when you're putting the bike together to make sure that you've got your reflectors on. I know a lot of people like skip that step, but it actually makes you, especially at dusk, very visible.
All right, so last point here is price. Currently on their website, it is $15.99. I'm very happy with this price, I have to be honest.
Yeah, if you go lower than $15.99 at the moment, and of course tariffs and all that stuff might be changing things as you watch this, but $15.99 is kind of the sweet spot for getting a quality bike. More than that, you got to start asking yourself, am I really going to use this bike enough? Is it worth it? Below that, it's like they start to chintz out on their parts. So $15.99, what we found is that you start to get all the nice features like the torque sensing and the bigger motors and the hydraulic brakes, and not the extra fluff you don't need when you get into like the $2,200 bike. So I think it is the sweet spot for all things I'm looking for in a bike.
Yeah, the only cons really for this bike are going to be no fender, no rack, the weight. I think that the weight is probably, if anything was going to prevent you from getting this bike, the weight might be it.
Let's talk about that, because it's a pro and a con. On the con side, I totally agree. Getting this thing up onto a bike rack, even with two guys, is not fun for your back. So I would lean towards a bike rack that had a ramp or don't bike rack it. Because, I mean, it is heavy for most bike racks. Check your bike rack first. Also,
This may be a garage bike.
It might be a garage
bike. You drive it out of your garage. It's like a car. You don't put your car on anything unless it's a tow truck. And with this, you could argue, you drive it out of your house. Hopefully, you can get it onto a bike trail, and away you go.
Because it does limit you. I mean, a bike should be portable, and so really think about that. At 83 pounds, it's a lot of weight. I know you can take the battery out, but like, really think about that.
Yep.
But on the plus side, when I get onto a trail, it feels solid. It feels like there's not going to be a problem. I love feeling kind of invincible and not having to worry about loose gravel. I mean, these 4-inch fat tires always take care of that for me. And I don't have to worry that like it's too wimpy for the trail I'm on. The frame is so solid that, I don't know, it just became my go-to bike now.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has everything that you want. It's got the dual suspension, got the biggest tires that really you conceivably need. 26x4s are perfect. The 26 means that when you hit a bump, it doesn't feel as much because the whole like radius of the tire absorbs a ton of it. And then the width. You can drive over gravel, you can drive over loose dirt, you can even a little bit of packed sand you're going to be okay on. So that makes it just awesome.
A little bit of advice for the tires: you don't always have to pump them up to their max. That's great for range and it's great for just being on roads. But if you're going to be off-roading at all, I would take a little air out. That will make your ride so much more enjoyable. Yes, your range will drop a little bit, but that's kind of what you need to decide on your trips. So for me, when we're going on a trip, I back it off 5 or 10 pounds so that I get a nice, comfortable ride.
So yeah, if you're comfortable lifting this bike or you have a situation that's going to work for you in terms of the weight, it's a 2 thumbs up for me.
And we have a review coming up soon, I think, on a bike rack that has a ramp. And I think that's probably going to be the way to go with this bike.
Definitely.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. If you have something you want us to review, put it down in the comments and let us know. And let us know what you think about this bike. We'll see you guys next time on Now Let's Review.